Today I am answering the question, what does burnout look and feel like? So I'm going to be talking through some of the symptoms of burnout, what that might feel like if you're experiencing burnout, and some of the things you might like to look out for if you're concerned about others who may be at risk of burnout. It's all going to be packed into less than 10 minutes, so let's go.
It's nearly 10 years since my burnout experience, and I believe that it wasn't necessary for me to burn out, and it's not necessary for you either. In this podcast, my guests and I share our real-life experiences with burnout. We get into the science of stress and share actionable tips on how to prevent burnout and how to recover from it. I'm Hannah Holden, ex-management consultant and burnout survivor. I work with management consultants to help them avoid and overcome burnout. I help them to get intentional about their choices, rebuild their energy, and embed new healthy habits so that they can get back to loving life.
First, I want to start by saying that burnout doesn't strike like lightning. It doesn't come out of the blue. Burnout is a consequence of unmanaged chronic stress. Sometimes this will have been over a course of months, but more often it's over the course of years. So this doesn't come out of the blue. I'm going to do a separate mini episode specifically talking through the phases of burnout and what you can do at each stage. But in summary, you're likely to have had some kind of honeymoon where you loved your job and you gave it your all, and that was okay because you loved it. You'll have found it rewarding and challenging in a good way. And then over time, the stress creeps in and you experience stress, which then over a long period of time becomes chronic stress. And the ultimate consequence of chronic stress over a prolonged period is burnout. So let's start by saying when we're looking for what does burnout look and feel like, that will have been the sequence of events. So if that profile of events sounds similar to what you're experiencing or what somebody else is experiencing, then it could well be burnout. But what does burnout look and feel like? That's the topic of today's conversation. So the World Health Organization added burnout to its classification of diseases in 2019. And when it did, it said that there are 3 dimensions to burnout. And those 3 dimensions are exhaustion, cynicism, and a reduced sense of efficacy. So I'm going to talk through each one of those 3 areas and give you some examples of the kinds of symptoms, what you could look out for if you're concerned about burnout in yourself, and what you might look out for if you're concerned about others. So let's take the first one. The first one is feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion. So this could be mental exhaustion. You might be struggling to focus. You might have brain fog. Emotional exhaustion. You might be feeling this sense of being drained or worn out, likely because you cared so much about your job and you've just kind of run out of steam. Physical exhaustion. So you're going to perhaps find it difficult to get up in the morning. You might be hitting the snooze button too many times, more times than you meant to. Often this is coupled with a difficulty getting to sleep at night or waking during the night. People describe being tired but wired. So these are all symptoms of stress and chronic stress, which will be present at the point of burnout. Or may be present. It's not, none of these 3 areas are kind of compulsory, but these are the 3 areas that will show up for different people. For some, it'll be one area more than others. So what does this look like if you were looking out for a friend or a colleague? Are they tired all of the time? Are they using more coffees than they would usually do to be able to pick themselves up and get themselves through the day? Have you noticed them struggling to concentrate? Perhaps it's during meetings and they're losing their concentration. Perhaps they are experiencing some of the physical impacts of chronic stress over time and they're calling in sick. So stress can show up physically in the body and make you feel unwell, but also there may be associated with that a kind of loss of love for the job and therefore calling in sick sometimes because they just don't have the passion for it anymore. Which brings me on to the next area, which is that feeling cynicism or feeling negative about one's job and an increased mental distance from one's job. So what does that look like? This looks like a lack of enjoyment in things that you once loved, that loss of your love for work or enjoyment for work, becoming cynical about it. So making criticism about how it's being managed or how other colleagues are showing up at work, feeling pessimistic and being pessimistic about it. It's never going to get any better. A sense of, oh, I just give up. You're disillusioned with your work. Sometimes this aspect is called depersonalization. We might be out of sorts, we might not recognize our behavior or even ourselves. There may be emotional distance and withdrawing from social scenes and social interactions. So you can't be bothered. You can't be bothered to make an effort, or you don't want to pretend that it's okay. You're avoiding people that once would have been fun, and now you don't get any enjoyment from that. In fact, you can't think of anything much worse, so you avoid it. So what does this look like in other people? Do you think that they are becoming a bit negative? Are they making negative comments? Perhaps it's about the workplace or about how the project is being managed or how the organisation is being managed. They may even be undermining management decisions. Are they withdrawing from social events that they used to enjoy? So if there was some kind of work social that they used to participate in and now they're not so engaged in that, perhaps that's a sign. Do they seem unenthusiastic and disengaged, like they're kind of just showing up and doing the bare minimum and they've lost all that enthusiasm that they used to have? This is all kind of relative to what they looked like before, so it would be very difficult to try and see this in somebody that you don't know very well. But if you know that when somebody first joined a job they were very positive, outgoing, engaging in social stuff, and now they're not, then that change is a kind of red flag that something might not be right. And then the last area is reduced professional efficacy. So feeling like there's no point, you're not good at your work, a sense of you're working all the time that you possibly can or giving it all of your effort, but you're not making the progress that you wanted to. A sense that why bother because you're not making a difference. Maybe it feels like the task is just too big. The change that's required in the organisation for you to be successful is just too big and you can't do it. It feels overwhelming. Maybe it feels like you've got so many things on your to-do list that it's impossible for you to ever get on top of it again. What's the point? Because you're not having an impact. You might as well not be there. Those kinds of like that sense of not being effective anymore in the role that you're in. A sense of inadequacy. So for me, when I had burnout, this was about, my gosh, this task is just ridiculously too big. There's no way that one person can undertake all of this work, rather than it being a loss of confidence in myself. But for other people, it would be a loss of confidence in themselves. So spotting this in others, do they talk about the task being impossible? Do they say that they couldn't possibly take time off because it would have such a negative impact? Is some of this showing up for them? Do they seem like, do they use language about things being impossible, it's all too big, what's the point, they can't make an impact anymore anyway? So those are some of the examples. This is just one of the mini episodes, and I wanted to do a few kind of value-packed, information-packed episodes on burnout, like the burnout basics. If you want to get into this in a bit more detail, then here are a few other episodes to listen to. Episode 1 is my personal experience of burnout, and it goes into a lot more detail. It's far more granular, it's a bit raw, it's very honest, a very honest and personal account of what burnout looks like. Episode 6 is where, again, it's a personal experience, and it's about my personal experience, where I describe some of the warning signs that were visible before my burnout. And then episode 9 is another one you might like to look at, which is the one with Sam Robinson, who's a consultant psychotherapist. We talk about the burnout symptoms, and he also talks about those phases of stress that lead into burnout. This episode was intended to give you some insights. It's not really meant to be a full diagnostic tool, but it will give you a feel for what is or isn't burnout. If you're in any doubt, go and see your doctor. All right, I hope that's been helpful. Thank you.
These podcasts are here to help you manage your stress and burnout, and your feedback is really valuable. So please rate this podcast and also drop me a note with any questions, suggestions, or feedback that you might have. One of the most common questions I get asked is, where should I start? And I believe that the best place for you to start is to learn how to soothe your nervous system. I've created a free download with instructions for 5 different ways that you can do just this, and all of them work pretty much instantly. It's called the Essential Toolkit for Management Consultants. You can download it now at www.hannahholden.co.uk/essential. One last thing, it's the legal language. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your doctor, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional.